How are you? Hopefully great. And if not, hopefully all of today's topics change that. What are we doing today? Well, we're going to be ranking each and every one of the first round playoff series, even the ones that ended in 5 games.
I wonder which one you have ranked as the worst.
Then we're going to be ranking all of the impending second round matchups, giving us a chance to be wrong about who will win the cup for a second time. And of course, we'll be playing our second favorite game. That's Don't Think, Just Tweet. This is how we're going to start things off. We're going to be ranking all of the first round series from top to bottom. Anyone want to start this off?
You know, just let me start, okay? Just let me start, okay?
Sure.
It was obviously the Golden Knights versus the Jets because I think it was the shortest series too. Am I right? Yes.
Yes, it was.
For good reason. It was a tough one for the Jets. I think this series could have been, not to just make excuses, but a lot better had the Jets stayed healthy. But you know what? That's just part of the game. And like, as much as you can make excuses, it's just, that's part of playoffs. That's part of hockey. Injuries happen. I wish that we would have had our full roster. I think we could have given Vegas a lot better of a run for their money.
I'd like to thank Jesse for helping me say that 8th one. I'm just going to rifle off the rest of the list.
I'll just say one thing quick. I also don't think it was that terrible of a series. Like, they were entertaining games.
This is one of the best. This is one of the best.
It was just like a lot of good series.
Yeah.
Game 3, which I was at, was the best live hockey game I've ever been to in my life. Got to see it with my dad, which was wicked. And like
absolute G turtleneck, by the way. Your dad looked like my dad there.
Yeah, hell yeah.
They're turtleneck gang.
Hell yeah.
Martin.
Well, here's the other 7 teams I had.
Yeah, go ahead.
So 7 matchups, pardon me. So then I had Isles Canes. Then I got Stars Wild. Then I have Devils Rangers, which, by the way, that has not ended yet in our realm. So Monday morning. That could have moved up. Oilers Kings. Then I got Kraken Avs, just because of the surprise of it all. Then I got Leafs Bolts, and I feel like I have to go Bruins Panthers because that's just wild that they rifled off that win. Like, it's historical. You know, the Leafs one, it's history of sorts, hilarious history more than anything. The other one's like genuinely holy crap. Like, you'll talk about that until the end of time. Maybe Leafs fans as well. I don't know. Maybe you'll talk about first round.
I've got the same bottom 4 as you. I've got Vegas last, Hurricanes, then Stars, Rangers, and then the order flips a little from there. I've got Avs in the 4 spot.
Yeah, this guy didn't like that.
You're not a fan of that series.
No, honestly, it was a great series. I just thought the other 3 ahead of them were better. I liked Leafs Bolts a lot better from a storyline entertainment perspective. And then I had Bruins Panthers second and Oilers Kings first. I just thought Oilers Kings was always entertaining and had me at the edge of my seat because every game seemed like there was a comeback. Like, you were down 3 goals or 2 goals, did not matter. That team that was down was coming back every single time. Whereas
it was chaotic.
Yeah, whereas Bruins Panthers, those last 2 games were insane. It just felt like that every Oilers Kings game, even though it ended in 6, and it probably should have gone 7 the way the Kings played in 6. So that's why it got the 1 spot for me. But the history part of the Bruins collapse hasn't dawned on me.
I know it's not supposed to add to the entertainment value, but like there was like also like so many controversial calls as well. So
always helps.
It helps a little bit. Go on your list.
So I actually didn't have the Jets at the bottom. I still think the Isles Canes one was the most boring because it's just like no goals. Just like it was never in doubt to me, at least, that the Canes were gonna win that. Like, which is easy to say now, but like it just felt like a pretty inevitable thing. And then so I'd go Isles Canes, Jets, Knights, Stars Wild. Then I'd probably go then Avs Kraken because I know it went to 7, but like even that game 7 was kind of dull. And watching that, like that one goal,
a lot of drama.
Even the offside goal was like definitely offside.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it was tough for storylines in that game or in that series. Yeah. I just thought like the Seattle,
not that tough by the end.
Seattle doesn't really move the needle for me though. I don't know. It's just something where like they don't have any of the like when you think of the Seattle Kraken, you don't even think of like one particular player really. Like it's so much.
That's what's kind of cool about them, I think.
It is a cool story. I don't like hate the Seattle Kraken, and I like Bjorkstrand was electric last night. It was just hammering posts all night. But I don't know. There's something about them that just like I don't know. They need more storylines to build out from their history because they don't really have one yet. Anyways, then I'd go then Rangers Devils. Then I would go Toronto Tampa, Oilers Kings, and Bruins Panthers.
And finally, Jesse, your list.
Okay, so Jets, Golden Knights. And part of the reason why I think that they for sure should be in the last spot is because what the hell was that Game 5? It was like literally the worst hockey game ever. Next, I'm going Alice Canes. Then I had Stars Wild. Started off amazing. I thought that was actually going to be the best series of the first round, but, goaltending obviously prevailed in that one. Number 5, I have Kraken Avs. I think I had Leafs Lightning after that. Rangers Devils, because I've actually think that's been a great series. Like, Devils down 2. They win 3 in a row.
Yeah, all
Rangers
on the road
win
for the first
all on the road.
I guess
Rangers win 1.
The only reason I wouldn't have paired it higher, at least because I didn't on my own one, because I agree with you. That's like the one I wanted the most. It was just because like there've been so many where someone just got blown out. You know what I mean? Where it was just like where even the Rangers, they looked toothless in a couple of the games that they lost, which is most surprising. And Jersey looked great, but as we were kind of saying with some of the other series, like it wasn't as competitive for some of the games, especially the first two. Although the Devils played okay in the first game, but
for as kind of fierce as a rivalry as I thought it would be, though, it just hasn't materialized to that. Yeah, I just felt like we would get more, and it doesn't have to be fights or anything like that, but I just thought there would be more rivalry stuff going on. I don't know what that means exactly or how to quantify that.
That they'd be pranking each other.
It kind of just feels like it's been baseline. It hasn't really intensified in my mind to the level that I thought it would.
Well, like you probably don't think you're getting in a situation where like the coach is like calling out people's effort, which is what happened to the Rangers. Like that's like the hallmark of a good series is there will be no shortage of effort. You might lose a game, but you're not getting reamed out by your coach for saying like you were lifeless.
It's also, I mean, the 2 stars of the series are the goalies, so like that's gonna
sucks for goalies. It's like that feels that way, but it's
an amazing storyline, though, what's happening with Schmidt. Then Oilers Kings. I just loved watching that series so much. And then Bruins Panthers. That was just, I'm all in on the Panthers right now. Not just because of the Leafs. I just like the Panthers. I love Matthew Tkachuk. I've been a critic of Paul Maurice. I'll be the first to say it. A lot of respect to him for winning that series. Someone just said on Twitter, like, it's just so funny how they showed a clip of like how earlier in the year Paul Maurice was like ripping the Panthers publicly, like on the bench. The Panthers were like since then seem to like have kind of found their mojo. They just beat the Bruins, and then it's like Rick Bowness goes and says he's like disgusted with the Jets' effort.
No pushback, but it's the same crap we saw in February. It was. That's why so as soon as we were challenging for first place and teams were coming after us, we had no pushback. This series, we had no pushback. Their better players are so much better than ours, it's not even close.
And then, like, players are calling Bowness out.
He could have been honest with us. We could have had those discussions behind closed doors. So I didn't agree with how he handled himself after that game.
Blake Wheeler didn't like the comments, and I mean
Dubois didn't either. I feel like there were a few players that didn't.
Two guys who, again, not a joke, but saying like might not be there long term. So do you think that's connected to that, and that's why maybe those two guys in particular might have been a little ticked about it?
They probably would have preferred to just have an internal conversation about what was happening. You know, that's kind of like a trust that players have with their coaches. That's how you want things to be dealt with. On the other hand, and again, I'm not a player, so it's tougher for me to comment on. But as a fan, I loved what Rick Bowness did.
All right, well, let's go to ranking the second round matchups. Now, one of them we can't properly rank because it hasn't finished yet in our realm. But at the same time, I mean, if you'd like to take a shot on knowing whether or not it's the Rangers or the Devils facing the Canes, in my mind, that might actually not even entirely change the position. But
yeah, I think that one's low no matter what. And I don't
want to hate on the Canes.
I love
the
Devils. But
yeah. Who else do you like? How would you rank it?
I'll probably go Kraken Stars as my worst one, then probably the Canes and whoever series, just because like again it'll probably be the Canes are like they control games a lot, and then on top of that goaltending is probably going to be a big story either way, so it's kind of like so I'd probably go Oilers Vegas, Leafs Panthers. Like Oilers Vegas second, Leafs Panthers most exciting. Matthew Tkachuk, I don't know if we're ready for how much Leafs fans are going to hate him.
You hated Corey Perry.
Yeah. Like, imagine Corey Perry, but he's good at hockey.
On the ice for like 20 plus minutes a game.
And like, oh my God, he is going to become public enemy number one.
And he's going to love it the entire time.
He eats that up. That's where he wants to be. So like, it's terrifying, but it'll be a very exciting series.
But like the difference in how some of the goalies were handling in the Boston series with like Swayman when he was trying to mess with him in Game 7. He just crashed into the net, where it was just like, All right, like it was like it's so intentional, and he was just like, "Hey man, you all right? You all good? Like I don't care." Versus like getting yelled at from Allmark.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I think. I think the Oilers Vegas series will be very good, but Matthew Tkachuk is the element there that ramps it up for me. And obviously, I'm hyped to watch the Leafs in the second round. So,
all right, Jesse, your list.
At number 4, I'm going Seattle, Dallas, just because like I don't really know what to expect. I think it'll still be a cool series. I think the Stars are actually a really cool team, and there was a point in the season where like the Stars, I think, well, for a lot of the season they were first in the West. So, you cold?
What the hell was that?
Number 3, I'm going. I think it's going to be Hurricanes Rangers. It's just my gut, and I think that would be a great series. Number 2, I'm going to go Panthers Leafs. I'm very, very excited to watch that. I just love Matthew Tkachuk. He's a baller, as we said, and I think that the Leafs are obviously great. And I don't know, as a Leafs fan, who you would rather play. Like, some people might say, oh, yeah, like definitely Florida over Boston. But, like, Boston, again, looked like kind of scared and out of place in that series versus Florida. I don't know. The Panthers have got, like, an edge, but the Leafs are probably the more skilled team. It's going to be a great series. Very pumped. Number 1, I'm going Vegas, Golden Knights, just because I think that this is actually, in terms of skill, the most even series. I wasn't really impressed with Vegas to start the series against Winnipeg, but they just got better and better and better. They have a lot of different layers to their team. I think that the winner of that series is going to win the Cup. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I kind of have a similar one where Seattle and Dallas is probably at the bottom for me too, just because watching that Kraken series, like they're frustrating to play against, I think, because they come at you in waves. Like Vegas Golden Knights kind of 2.0 with no stars, like absolutely none. And if Jared McCann isn't playing, then that's an even bigger blow for them. Although he didn't really do a whole lot in the games that he did play before getting hurt. So.
And like if Matty Beniers had like a monster series, maybe that's the story. But yeah,
it really was spread out offensively, but they also kind of got caved in by the Avs' best players, which I just expect Dallas to do, and they've got a lot more depth than the Avs do right now. So that one's kind of at the bottom for me. But again, like you don't want to write off Seattle just based on what they did. I just think Dallas' star power is going to be too much, and it might just end up being a quick series. Hurricanes, Devils / Rangers will be 3 for me as well. There's just not enough star power. Like at this point in the playoffs, I want star power, and Aho is really the only guy you're talking about on Carolina. If the Devils and Rangers make it, like they've got their star players, but I just think it makes for kind of a boring or less entertaining matchup. I think I'll go Oilers Vegas too. Just because I think the Oilers are a bad matchup for Vegas. And I don't know why and whether
which way are you saying that?
You're saying the Oilers are going to win.
Yeah, like the Oilers are going to win.
Okay,
I think that it might just be Brossoit and like, hey, it was one round. Let's see you do it against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and all of this attacking power that the Oilers have. And I think the Kings are kind of scarier offensively than I think the Golden Knights are. Like, I like Jack Eichel. I like Mark Stone. Stevenson's great. The Kings' best players were unbelievable offensively in that series. Like Kopitar and Fiala and Kempe, Iafolo. Yeah. Like, they were brilliant.
It's funny, you look, like, we later in the show, we're going to do a thing where we rank some of, like, the best players and stuff like that. Yeah. And when you're looking through, we're also ranking the worst, and you're looking at the losing teams to be like, okay, who really blew it here? And, like,
it wasn't about blowing it for some of these teams, especially the Kings, as you said.
Like, Kempe was unbelievable. He's so
shot.
But do you think it says anything about the Oilers that like they're allowing these guys to look like? Don't get me wrong, like the Kings are awesome. I love the Kings, but like, who's to say that the Golden Knights' best players can't do the same thing to the Oilers? And like, is the Oilers goaltending that good? Like, I feel like Vegas is gonna find ways to beat Skinner.
I agree with you. I think that like the Oilers, but this is the Oilers' MO all year. It has been. It was last year. Like they're not good defensively. Like maybe we'll have Evan Bouchard later in the show and talk about him. Hasn't been great defensively. Like Skinner's been not great either. I just think that the Golden Knights forwards, and we looked into just the numbers, the underlying numbers. It's not like they were world beaters against the Jets. Like the Jets did a pretty darn good job defensively against them, and they still kind of found a way to get it done. I just think the Oilers are going to be too much, and then Leafs-Panthers is so exciting.
Okay, let's move on. We're going to go on to Don't Think, Just Tweet. I'm going to give you guys some prompts, and all you got to do is let me know what your tweet would be. Are you ready? Luca, we're going to start with you.
Oh, God.
Actually, no. It changes around. Jesse, we're going to start with you. People who think the President's Trophy is a curse are...
Correct. The President's Trophy is the worst trophy to win in sports.
Yeah, because you already tweeted it.
That's my tweet.
Did
that is my tweet. Yeah, I mean, there's such a big target on your back, and it's like, as there's just such an added pressure as soon as the playoffs start. It's like, oh no, everyone's coming for us. It's too much, and we see it year after year. Teams just blow it. It's the worst trophy.
By worst, you mean as well by it's like meaningless? Because I think we all agree it's meaningless.
Of course.
It's like no one ever really remembers or cares or celebrates that. Like you'll have the banner and most people are like, but it's not bad to win it though. Or do you actually you think it's actually a disadvantage?
Man, like if I was going toe to toe, if the Jets are going toe to toe with another team to be the best team in the league and win that trophy,
you'd let them win it.
I actually hope we lose.
And I'm serious. But just superstition, effectively, is what you're saying.
Yeah, of course.
Like we've talked about this many times.
Yes,
like there's no. It is not like it's not statistically true that you're less likely to win. I went back and it was like the entire history of the President's Trophy, which is from like 85, 86. And they've won it 8 times, which is, if you break it down to like every position in the playoffs of like 1 through 16, they've won it the most.
The cup. They've won the exactly.
What about the last 20 years? You've won it twice, I think.
Why are we limited in it like that? But also, that would be 3 times. And like if you go to 2000, they went 2001, 2002, 2008. And 2013,
Chicago, right?
Like it hasn't even been 10 years for this like curse to develop.
One thing on the 20 years as well, could that also just more indicate that it's just like again how even things are?
I was just
the team at the top doesn't necessarily have the greatest advantage. Where in other sports, you're right. Like the NBA, if you're the best team, sorry Bucks in this case, you're gonna at least go very far in the playoffs or not win. In hockey, I guess it's just really even now.
I was just going to say that exact thing. Like parity in hockey is so different from parity in any other sport where the star power matters. In NFL, you're getting first round buys. Like your first seed actually has an impact. Whereas hockey, you see all these upsets year in and year out, and these top teams going down. It's not a surprise by any means because of how good every team is.
The format changed too. Now it doesn't help. The fact because
let me rephrase my tweet. The President's Trophy is meaningless.
That's fair.
In my opinion.
I wish it wasn't, because I actually do think like even I know Boston fans are probably gonna be like not care about this at all, but I still think that should be something you should be proud of.
They won't care about the trophy, but they'll care about the regular season record to some degree.
They've won 1 Stanley Cup. They've made it to 2 other Cup finals and lost, but you would think that they'd have another one to their name in this Bergeron Marchand era.
They should have been a dynasty realistically, and they
just
haven't underachieved realistically. But it's like you go to 2 Game 7s in a Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and the way they lost those Game 7, like
devastating,
devastating losses.
Well, Corwin, you're up with the next tweet prompt. If I had to choose one remaining goalie to be my ride or die for the rest of the playoffs, it would be...
we're recording this when the Rangers are still in the playoffs, and Shesterkin is the best goalie in the league. Like I still would say that. I'd tweet, wow, I can't believe the New York Rangers lost Game 7 with the best goalie in the playoffs right now.
Luca, here's yours.
That's really good.
I didn't think about that one. No. Yeah?
When you think biggest choke job in sports history, the Boston Bruins are...
Oh, man. Putting me on the spot. Like, no. Sports history is nuts. There's no way.
It's got to be... I'd go
Warriors up 3-1. That's the biggest choke job of my lifetime that I've ever seen.
Falcons blowing a 28-3 lead.
That one's pretty
bad, too. I will say, though, like, the one-game things are so random sometimes that anything can happen. Honestly, them blowing a 3-0 lead against Philly in that first round all those years back and becoming the first team to get reverse swept in a long time. Like, that one's bigger than this one, maybe.
I guess the context is just that, like, the Bruins...
They had this all-time season.
They're historically, like, they were the best team.
But it doesn't matter. So much of that, too, was that their goalie was, like, the best goalie in the league this year, and then he wasn't in the first round. Like, that's...
Yeah, because Omar... And what playoff experience does Omar have? It just, like, goes to show, like...
Weren't the Warriors
being there is a big thing?
Didn't they break the Bulls record that year for wins in the season?
They
blew the 3-1 lead. That one is definitely the biggest choke job in all
I agree.
sports.
The Patriots also, I mean, if you want to still talk Boston, when they won all their games and they lost the finals. It's not a choke, but I mean...
like the 19-0, like David Tyree.
Route and the
helmet.
Not a choke job, but I get that one too.
I guess we can all agree that it's mainly Boston teams that choke the most.
That's the tweet. That's the
win the most, choke the most.
Replied.
They deserve it.
Yeah, win the most, choke the most. The last one, which actually is Bruins related and a little more soft. This is for you, Jesse. The way Marchand hugged Bergeron after the Bruins were eliminated made you feel
It made me feel emotional. I love Marchand. He's an absolute beauty. People hate him. I love him. And like everyone loves Bergeron. And like you could just see how much those guys mean to one another. Yeah, like that's what happens when you just like play on a line together for so long. You actually become like brothers. It's a crazy thing. So yeah, it made me feel emotional.
You say it's like sad. I mean, he came back for that 1 year. You don't know if he'll be back next year, and that sucks. Like, yeah, they've won one cup, which still that's one more than a lot of people will ever win, but that's definitely got to hurt. And the very last one, Luca, the best player who will not be playing in the second round is
McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen.
Okay, let me repreface. Don't pick your own team in this one.
I legitimately think it's those three. Who else would it be?
I'll challenge you to change that, but we'll note it on the record how you feel.
Adam Lowry.
No, legitimately, I want to hear another argument because, like, McKinnon and Rantanen's tied for the lead in playoff goals right now.
All right, I was just hoping, there's some teams we haven't talked about. That's okay. You can say it's the correct answer. It's fine. Now we're gonna go on to, and this kind of transitions nicely into this. Not just talking about one of the guys who might not be going on, but maybe a bunch. Who knows? But I'm guessing this might be made up of people who are advancing. Your first team, all first round. So I need 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie from each of you. Jesse, you want to start? You look ready for this.
My whole team?
Yeah, and you better not say Adam Lowry.
No. Although mad respect to Adam Lowry, I thought he was fantastic for the Jets, and he might be wearing the C for us next year. Don't be surprised. First line, I got Matthew Tkachuk. He's just an absolute stud. I love him. Rupe Hintz, who was incredible in that first round series. And then I got Marner. And then on defense, I got Evan Bouchard. And I've got Brandon Montour because I think he's just an absolute stud. My goalie is Andre.
All right, Corwin, your team.
So I had Matthew Tkachuk, Rupe Hintz, Leon Draisaitl as my forwards. And then I had Morgan Rielly and Brandon Montour on the blue line and Grubauer as the goalie. I'd go even further. Matthew Tkachuk, I was texting you guys this last night, and I genuinely think, like, if I was looking to build a team right now, I think it goes McDavid, then Tkachuk. Man, back-to-back 100-point seasons. He pretty much, like, brings his team to the playoffs. He was so good in that first round. I would genuinely say he was probably the best player in the first round just from like that series alone, and you do it against the Bruins is even crazier, which is why Florida still terrifies me in the second round. I know people were like, oh, you'd way rather play Florida, and you would because you get home ice and there are advantages there, but like, man, he's a scary player. So and then Morgan Rielly, I honestly think was the best Leafs player in the first round series, which I will eat some crow on that because like I am never allowed to complain about Morgan Rielly's contract again because I do it a lot, and he's been such a conflicting player for me because I actually think he's such a good guy. Like anytime we go to Leafs media days and stuff, he's like seems like such a good person, and like so much of the stuff he does with the community is so good that I've been frustrated with the contract. So to see him actually perform that great and like just stand out in that series was so awesome to see. I'm so happy for him.
All right, Luca, your first team.
We've said all the same forwards. I just don't have Hintz in mine. I have Tkachuk, Draisaitl, Marner. And then on defense, I've got Slavin. I didn't know if I wanted to put Montour in because, like, I know he scored 5 goals. He had a really great series, but he kind of got caved in a little bit defensively. Hey, he had a great offensive season, and, like, that's kind of his role. So if you're looking for a guy that just came up clutch a bunch and scored some big goals, then put Montour there. This is going to sound homer, but looking at the defenseman numbers, I honestly thought Cale Makar had one of the best series that you could have as a defenseman.
Guys picking Cale Makar.
No, I'm not. I'm giving him an honorable mention. No. I'll pick Montour ahead of him. I was going to put Rielly there as well, but if you look at the numbers, like, Makar was pretty dominant. The Avs were just dominant when he was on the ice.
I mean, and also took bad suspension.
Took a bad suspension.
And maybe cost his team
no,
the series.
that's not what cost.
He wasn't there. They could have won that game.
Could have won the game before when it was 2-2 in overtime and they were playing like ass. Like, they showed up finally in the last 3 games of this series. Like, it's not on 1 game suspension. And goaltender Jake Ottinger for me as well. I think Slavin probably he doesn't get enough respect. Like, he's not going to put up the points, but, like, Carolina's defense and their whole defensive structure, it's all him.
Brent Burns'
career revitalization can be directly tied to Jacob Slavin and how well he's playing and just how good he is. And then I think Marner's unbelievable. Like he's played on so many different line combinations this postseason with the Leafs, and all of them are in like the top half or like top lines as far as expected goals go. Marner's on most of the Leafs combinations that they've had.
Who do you think is more valuable to the Leafs, Marner or Matthews?
Matthews, I still think. Like
he's got the upside of scoring 50 every year.
Yeah, Marner's a great player, and I really do love him, and he's so fun to watch sometimes, but I still think Matthews is a more valuable player.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next one, which is not as friendly, even though the name would suggest otherwise, and it's our Casper the Friendly Five. It's people who ghosted the first round. It sucks, it happens, sometimes this is the way it goes, but 5 players, again, only 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, 1 goalie who was not present in the first round.
My all-ghost team is Kaprizov, Bo Horvat, Tanner Jeannot, Hampus Lindholm, and Hedman, which I don't feel great about, and Hellebuyck. Kick things off with someone who I drafted in my playoff poo.
He took a dump for you.
He was poo. Kirill the Thrill, Kaprizov. He was brutal in that series.
Has to be like we were saying, Kachuk at the top of the good one. He's got to
be
the bottom of the bad one.
Awful. And if you're a Wild fan, you're like, what the hell just happened?
1 point in the series. 1 point.
Brutal. Bo Horvat, I'm throwing in there too.
You like it? I didn't even think about that one, honestly. That is crazy.
What an absolute. I'm sorry. What an absolute idiot. After those comments that he made about Vancouver, which I didn't agree about in the first place, like talking about going to the Islanders and like how
he
different it was,
apologized
how much
for
better
that
it was.
too, though.
But also you can get heat of the moment, like feeling that way.
Yeah, but then he like comes out and like he's supposed to be this asset that helps them get over the hump, and just does a whole lot of nothing. Like, way to go, Bo. And then who I think actually might be, and I know he's battling some injuries, but like this is, I think, even worse than Kaprizov, is Tanner Jeannot. If you consider what the Lightning gave up for him and how little he actually did in that series, it's remarkable. Should honestly go down as one of the worst deadline deals in recent memory.
Got pumped by Luke Shen too.
Yeah, exactly.
Couldn't even win that part of his matchup.
On defense, I'm going with Hampus Lindholm for the Bruins. He just did like a whole bunch of nothing, I feel, for them. But I don't think he had a single point. You expect more out of someone like that, in my opinion. And maybe I'm wrong here, but like I feel like you kind of just expect more out of him. Like, and he was hurt, but like you probably want more out of a guy like Victor Hedman in that series against the Leafs. Like, he's just been such a difference maker in the past, and this year he didn't seem to be as much of a difference maker. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you
saw the difference though when he was gone though.
His underlying numbers were great.
We're good. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I just that was just someone who I noticed that, like, if the Lightning are going to win, they probably need a little more out of him. But if his underlying numbers were great, maybe they're great. But just from what I saw, if they want to win, they need more from Hedman. As my goalie, like, as much as it pains me to say, like, I'm probably going with Hellebuyck. I think it's Hellebuyck or Vasilevsky. Vasilevsky kind of turned it up a little towards the end of the series, but like
that's the expectation though. To make that like this 5, there has to be an expectation that like you're really gonna help your team, as you said, get over the hump. And
that's the thing.
He had expectation.
That's the thing. It's the expectation. It's the expectation that Hellebuyck, who's a Vezina caliber goalie, is gonna steal us a couple games. Didn't do it.
All right, Corwin, your friendly 5.
So I think I would imagine we're all gonna have Kaprizov on our list because that's just a nightmare series there. Again, we filmed this before Game 7. Tonight he could have a monster game, but Artemi Panarin has been a bit of a ghost in that series. This third spot I thought was kind of tough. Like I thought about maybe Scheifele. I thought about and I know he got hurt, but I just think in those games before that you'd want a little more out of him.
Did score a big goal in Game 3 though.
Yeah. But again,
I agree.
I agree. You want a little more, but
100%.
Especially because I actually thought he had a really good year and like
he had 42 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's so I don't know, that was a little surprising to me. For D, I was actually gonna go Sam Girard and Sergachev. I was considering throwing Justin Holl in there, and then goalie I'm going with Linus Ullmark because I just think like you were saying like this is a Vezina worthy guy for Hellebuyck. This is gonna be the Vezina guy, and he lost his job in that series. Like that's tough.
That said, like, you look at some of the other goalies who have been in the playoffs before, and like you kind of expect more out of them in the playoffs because they've been there. And like Ullmark has no playoff experience, and while I agree that it's disappointing because of the season he had, personally I wasn't as surprised to see Ullmark struggle as I was to see Vasilevsky and Hellebuyck struggle.
Why Sergachev, by the way?
Oh, John Cooper's just like, he's just always in the media, just
so smug.
Yeah,
I hate him.
Steve Kerr out there.
He's not
He's
Sergachev.
not. He's the complete
Him and
opposite
Steve
of
Kerr
Steve
are not the
It's
same type of
so
person at all.
wild.
No, but he was talking about Sergachev, like, yeah, we think we've got another Hedman on our hands now, and I was like, this guy's like 27, isn't he? Like, what are you talking about? Like, he's still developing into a player or something.
They
Like,
paid him a lot of money.
I know,
What's
they
getting
paid him
paid again a year? Like $8 million a year?
Yeah, exactly.
Not,
And
not
so-
much less than, or more than Hedman, I think.
makes a lot of money, and I just don't think he was very good in that series at all. Justin Hall was the other one I considered because he was like, he had a terrible series, but they won in the end and whatever. But
What do you expect? You know, like it's
I
Justin
expect,
Hall.
I expect them to
And
do
you
what
like
they did
Justin
last
Hall a
game.
lot,
And
like,
just
as
I
a
think
person.
I think he's the
box.
beauty and the,
Yes, as a
and,
person.
and I'm not saying you do this at all, but like just oh my god, that guy gets absolutely torn apart like I've
Yeah.
never seen
Well,
before
it's one
by
of those
fans. It's
things-
like, what do you expect? Like he's like a very like fringe NHL player.
to be fair, though, the reason that I put it more on the coaching staff and like,
Yeah.
because they put him in a bad position where
Definitely.
they like, again, in times that he has shown he might not be in their top 6 defensemen, and they keep playing him. And like I think he has a purpose. He's a good penalty killer, and I think he like does some things well. He's just not one of their best 6 defensemen, in my opinion. And I don't think that's they have really good defensemen, so I don't think that's a total shot at him, but it's just you're gonna be a bit exposed.
And he doesn't. So you pretty much both you would agree then he doesn't make it on that list just from expectation. If the expectations are low and you kind of don't meet even
No,
those,
but
you're
he
around
had
there.
a-
Then
but
Were
he
they
had a
outscored
bad
14-2
series,
when he was on the ice this
Okay.
series?
Well, then maybe you should have
That's
put
not a
him.
good
Can
number.
I say one thing? Like, you wonder why he keeps getting in the lineup. Do you think it's possible that the coach decides to stick Hall in the lineup? And maybe I don't agree with this necessarily, but like it just seems like the team really loves Hall. Like he's very loved by his teammates, and I don't know, but like maybe players want him in because they're really tight with him and they feel like he's good for the locker room, and like
But like
maybe,
he'll be there, like, and they got a bunch of guys like that. Like you saw after their win, you saw Jake Muzzin coming down, like celebrating with all the guys,
Yeah,
and like
of course.
they're rooting for the guys. Wayne Simmons, yeah,
You
like
should get someone going like a press box chain. You know what I mean?
That'd actually be so
Hey,
sick.
guys in the press box, we really appreciate your play. out
Yeah.
there.
I wish
Here's
they
the press
sat
box
with
chain.
Kyle
Yeah.
Dubas, the guys in the press
Yeah,
box. Just
what?
get them all watching together.
You know what? I bet you Dubas probably is happy there's not. Because can you imagine being a GM and in the press box there, like the things you might say
you
out
might
loud
hear?
during a game where you're
Oh,
like,
that'd be
the
pretty
hell did you
nuts.
just say about me?
Yeah,
Like, Or
yeah.
if he's saying about him, what's he think
Yeah.
about me?
Dubas press box was just like
Electric.
must see TV every night. He was just
He was
going
into it.
nuts.
Brendan Shanahan, like, kind of just telling him to relax. I just saved my job.
Yeah.
He's like he's not that much older than us.
No.
Like, he's just like
So
he
crazy.
just he just loves puck. He's
And
got
we have a
that
similar
energy.
job.
He's
all
got
of
the
us.
passion. He's got the passion.
Spezza was
He's living
pumped,
the
too.
dream.
I love the Spezza.
Yeah, Spezza was hyped.
I know. I love.
Spezza came
I
was
love
great.
Jason Spezza. Like, so every year I do this thing where I tweet out like who I think, what order I think the Leafs would give the Stanley Cup in, and like
He's got to be second on this order.
Spezza.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care.
I
that he's
know.
up in the box.
I hope he fully
Press
does
box
the
chain.
John Terry and just like
Oh,
comes
get
out
the whole uniform.
comes out in full gear.
Take the photo. Like
Yeah.
you played.
100%.
You're in the press box. You better do that too.
100%.
Everyone's press box chain.
You all deserve it, which is crazy. Someone also pointed out that like Rasmus Sandin and Pierre Engvall will get Stanley Cup rings if they
That's
if the
amazing.
Leafs win, which is crazy.
Well earned.
amazing.
Luca.
Let's hold our horses.
All right. Your friendly five.
I don't have Kaprizov because I think he's hurt, and maybe I'm reading too much into it. So he's the guy left off forwards. Panarin.
You're an idiot.
I know, I'm an idiot. Panarin, because even if they win tonight, unless he scores 4 goals, he's going to be there. I have Stamkos and Braden Point up front. And then defensemen, I have Drew Doughty and Charlie McAvoy. And in net, Korpisalo. So Stamkos and Point, like Point had a 50-goal season.
Yeah,
he's
you'll see
awesome
he's
in the
on my
playoffs too. Like he's amazing in the playoffs historically. He had one game when they blew them out. That was his production, and he didn't do
Those are
anything
the
else.
only 2 goals he scored.
Yeah,
right?
and then
Was-
Stamkos scored twice in this series. Like, that's not enough for those guys. Kucherov was great. Those guys weren't enough. I think Doughty had a really tough job. He wasn't in the Oilers series last year. Him and Mikey Anderson, like, it's tough going against those Oilers players, but they did not look good.
It's literally one of the hardest jobs of all time.
Literally
Yeah,
one of
like,
the hardest
literally,
jobs of
yeah.
all time. But Doughty invites those challenges, and when you're playing all those minutes, you gotta look half decent, and he did not look half decent. And I think Charlie McAvoy, for as much Norris love as he gets, he
I saw-
probably disappointed a little this year.
Bruins fans were really
Yeah.
disappointed in him, I thought.
Yeah.
Like, and they
Makes
because
sense.
like I saw a lot of stuff of like Why are they still playing him so much?
Which is that's a guy that people are fighting in Norris conversations about kind of year in and year out, as he's on the cusp with the Makars and the Foxes of the world, but this is the time where you prove that you can earn those big minutes and that you're that guy. And the Korpisalo one kind of... I think LA, if they had a better goalie, like, they would have maybe made it a 7-game series.
But it's not like Stuart Skinner was great either.
I agree. And I didn't have expectations either for Korpisalo.
It's like the hardest job ever playing goalie.
I'm more just like disappointed that the Kings didn't get to 7 games this series, because I think they deserved it, and he probably let them down a little more so than I thought they could have.
This guy's rattled that Korpisalo busted his bracket.
Yeah, I did have Kings winning.
Kings Knights would have been an insane series too.
I just want LA, man. It's showtime.
All right, before we close things off, just who you think is winning their series in the second round?
I'm going to go Stars over the Kraken in 6, Rangers over the Hurricanes in 7. I'm going to go with the Panthers over the Leafs in 7. That one's going to be a great series. I think I'm going Vegas over Oilers in 7.
Leafs over Panthers in 6. Stars over Kraken in 5. Oilers over Knights in 7. Devils over Hurricanes in 7.
I've got very similar to you. I've got Stars over Kraken in 5. Oilers over Vegas in 6. Leafs over Panthers in 6. Devils over Hurricanes in 6.
I'm going to go Dallas over Kraken in 5. Knights over Oilers in 6. I actually think Leafs over Panthers in 6. And then I'm going to go Rangers, but in 7. That's it. Well, hey, if you like the pod, you like hanging out with us, we're going to try and do this more consistently when Luca's back. And in fact, in general, we'll have some nice guest people in here.
This guy knew the Avs were out. Just took vacation.
Just took vacation with them. Me and Kayla are going to hang out in Greece a bit, just chill.
My phone just died. I was going to show you guys the video. There's a hilarious video. It had to be the worst series of events for this one Leafs fan. I went down where all the celebrations were happening. This guy climbs up. He puts a jersey on. No. So he's going to tie a jersey on top of the lamppost.
Leave it there like a pair of shoes on a line?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he climbs all the way up. He goes to tie the thing on. He gets it on and then starts going back down, and then the jersey falls off. And then a bunch of cops showed up and arrested him. It's like, whoa, that's the worst turn of events for this guy ever.
Honestly, celebrating
right.
At least get the job done.
Dude,